Hello and welcome to another episode of Moose's Gear Goo Review. I'm Moose, and today we have another knife review. And this knife is a fixed blade. It's a pretty sweet fixed blade by Buck. It is the Buck Reaper. The Buck Reaper. And this is the rosewood variant. So let's set this down and we'll go over some specs as far as what you might want to know about the knife. So the overall length is 11 inches. The blade length is 6.7 inches. The blade thickness is 0.15 inches. The handle length is 4.25 inches. And the overall weight for this full tang fixed blade is 7.33 ounces. So we'll set the sheath aside and we'll touch on that in a sec. First off, I have to say this is just a really cool looking knife. It's a very decent sized knife and it has a lot of neat angles and features and holds and grips that make it a very versatile knife. And for the price and where I got it, which I'll explain, is a really good deal. So, first off, just overall, it is a full tang knife. That means that the profile of the blade, or at least the majority of the blade, the steel, is one piece, and it goes all the way through the handle to the butt end. Okay, so you can see that you got the rosewood scales on either side, and the tang goes through. That is ideally the strongest form of a fixed blade a person would want. It's one solid piece of steel, therefore it's going to be stronger than having just a partial tang or a rat tail tang. That's just how it is. So going into that, we'll start with the blade. The blade shape is really cool. It's kind of like a Bowie style knife. There's a lot of different angles and shapes going on with this. First off, there's a general slight curve and roundedness to the top of the spine. We have an unsharpened false swedge on top here. It wouldn't be too hard to sharpen that if you did want to, if it's legal in your area or whatever. But it is unsharpened, and that's, could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the use of the blade, and I'll touch on that again. It is a full plain edge blade. There's no serrations. There is a very shallow recurve that extends 3/4 of the length of the blade before it sweeps up into that belly. That gives it a very unique look and shape. And then if you notice, if you hold the handle, the blade is actually cockeyed or off center from the handle about 6 degrees, I want to say 6 to 10 degrees, giving it kind of this kukri style angle that is more or less reminiscent of something to give you more leverage for chopping. So yeah, and that's the blade. It is a hollow grind. It does have a kind of traction, kind of rhino bedliner type coating to prevent reflection and rust and anything else. This is considered a survival knife. So according to Dave Canterbury, which a lot of people quote, his ideal survival knife is having at least a 5-inch blade. So this, I believe, meets that. The blade length is 6.75 inches, so it's more than meets it. Now the actual cutting surface is closer to 5 inches because we do have that finger choil, and there is jimping across the top. So speaking of the choil, there are a number of different grips with this knife, which adds to the features or the capabilities of it. You have your typical overhand hammer grip. That when I first saw this knife, I was concerned that the handle was sort of short. But once I actually get it in hand, it's actually very comfortable. They kind of just measured it out to fit in there perfectly. And it's just enough. I'd say if it was any shorter, it would be too short for my hand, and I have extra large or XL glove size hands. But then you can choke up into that finger choil if you want to do finer carving, and that's actually really comfortable. So you have this thumb ramp here if you're in a normal grip, doing whatever, light chopping. Then if you want to go into that finger choil, you get over that hump and your thumb just locks right into place there. And it's actually incredibly comfortable there. And I want to say that this knife is like a 3 grip knife, because then at the bottom the handle curves, and then if you look at the profile, it actually swells out. So you kind of get this knob or this bulge that actually sinks into the space between your fingers. So you could either go between your ring finger and your pinky finger, or your middle finger and your ring finger. I like doing the pinky just because I get 3-finger grip around it, but that still adds to the leverage for chopping. So there's the grip there, there's the regular grip, and then there's a 4 grip. So 3 grip knife handle grip for this knife, which is pretty awesome for how small it is and how light it is. Going back to the blade shape, because it has that angle, it's good for chopping, especially with that swedge. You get that more belly, and you kind of get that sweet spot right at the start of the curve for that belly to do chopping. Now, Gideon's Tactical, I think, said it best that this knife is a good survival knife, especially for the price. If you're looking for a solid fixed blade knife for a fair price, this would definitely be an option. But ideally, this would work much better in kind of a swampy, marshy area where there's a lot of different grasses or thinner diameter bushes or twigs. I mean, I could just see myself chopping through cattails with this really well. Really well. Some more softer vegetations, this would hack through really well. As far as any other kind of bushcraft capacity, you will do the work, but because of this hollow grind, it isn't as strong as something like a flat grind. And it would be there's videos out there where people have experienced it chipping, because they were just trying to hack through some like hard wood. So it's not as much as going for like hacking through logs, as much as you just want to kind of limb trees and stuff and take off things probably no bigger than an inch in diameter, if not slightly more. Now, that being said, this is large enough that you could potentially baton with it, and I tested this out, and it worked okay. I didn't want to push it too much, but for light batoning, maybe 2 inches in diameter or less, this would be sufficient. But once again, going to that swedge, because it's that swedge on the top, you don't have a flat spot to hit your baton. So this will actually chew up a baton a lot worse than actually giving you a flat spot to hit and split wood. So I wouldn't say it's the best for batoning either. An inch to maybe 2 inches at the most is what ideally you would want for this type of blade. The other thing, having a recurve, it is a little bit more difficult to sharpen. It works best to sharpen these types of knives, a recurve knife, on a rod system. But if you're trying to do it out in the field, it'd be a little bit more difficult. Now, on the other Reaper variations, they come in different plastic handle scales. This came with the rosewood, which gives it a much more solid feel, really locks into there. The handle is skeletonized underneath the scale, and underneath the scale there are 2 lanyard holes in the tang, just like the other Reapers. Now, in the other Reaper handle scales, they actually have those holes drilled out in case you want to put lanyards or lashings with it. And this one, for whatever reason, the handle scales cover those up. Now, I told you I'd tell you where I got this. This variation specifically, I believe you can get off the Buck website, but it seems to be also an exclusive variation available at Walmart, and that is also where I found the cheapest price. Online, you can find the Buck Reaper for around $50. At Walmart, you can get the rosewood variation for $40. So it does come with a basic nylon sheath. It's meant for right-hand carry only, but it does the job. It holds it in there but I wouldn't blame anyone for wanting to buy an aftermarket sheath, just because, you know, this is nothing special. So let's compare it to some other knives real quickly. We have the Mora Companion right there. We have the Mora Garberg right here, and then we have the K-Bar BK16. Now, I'm not a big knife guy, so as you can see, all these other knives are hitting the mark at about 4-inch blades, just over like 4.5-inch. This one's much larger. Handle-wise, the handle's actually the most similar to the Mora Companion, and it looks like the BK16 is just ever so slightly larger than that. The largest handle is obviously on the Mora Garberg. So looking at blade thickness comparison, we have looks like it's pretty similar, but I think the traction coating makes the Buck Reaper a little bit thicker compared to the Mora Companion. The Buck Reaper is thicker, and the BK16, they look about the same blade thickness, so more comparable there. So pretty cool. Other than that, you know, there's nothing much to test with you know, the Buck Reaper. As far as like the ugly brown glove test, I usually save that for folders, so sorry, but I'm sure undoing it will get this open and out. So there you have it. Really nice knife. I do enjoy this. It's a really cool knife. It looks really cool, and it feels like it could be really awesome. I forgot to mention the blade steel on this is Buck's 420 HC. If you don't know by now, they have a Boss heat treat. He does an awesome heat treat on the 420, and it's done on this one, at least the one in Walmart. The Rosewood variation. It is made in the USA, and for $40 for a larger fixed blade, full tang fixed blade survival knife that you shouldn't be afraid to beat around on, this is definitely worth it. So there you have it, guys. Please check out this knife. You know, there's also other variations on Blade HQ with the black handles and whatnot, but check it out. Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can check out the 2 videos over here, and check that big round button down there or down below the red subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll see you outside.